Hey, good afternoon, and welcome to today's episode of From the Command Post. We're live here from the Public Safety Training Academy Command Lab. I'm Battalion Chief Mark Davis, and as always, pleased to bring another live episode of one of our important series, the From the Command Post series. Today we have a special presentation. It's not incident-based. There's going to be some discussions with the Operations Chief and some of his admin staff, Chief Officer staff. As always, if you're a certified chief officer wishing to receive COPDI credit, make sure you fill out the form on the Training Academy's website page. Today we allocating 60 minutes to that, so enter 1 hour on that form if you're doing so. If you're watching from a firehouse, then please indicate in the YouTube chat which fire station and how many people are watching with you. That's important for our data collection. What else? Hey, so I'd like to say this is my last episode of doing all these series. Those of you that hung in with us since COVID, right? This really got started since COVID, and I really would like to thank those folks back then who saw the value in the venture and got us started. So that was Chiefs Goldstein and Bailey and Thomas and Sanford, Captain Miller, who agreed to be the guinea pig and be one of our moderators, and of course it has just grown over time, and John Petrarca and that whole group who now has become 1075 Media. So a lot of growth over this time. Appreciate all of the viewership. I think that every product has been really good out of this studio. So that being said, today we're going to have an opportunity to talk to Chief Cooper and the Operations Chief Officer staff, and I'm going to turn it over to Battalion Chief Gibson, who is going to be the moderator for today. Chief Gibson.
Thank you, and welcome everybody. So as the Chief Davis has introduced the episode, today we're going to be talking to the Operations Chief, our new Operations Chief, since Chief Corey Spendley has taken over the department. And we're just going to kind of go around the table, talk about what's important in operations, the new chief and his expectations, and what we should expect from the leadership team in operations. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Chief Cooper, our new operations chief, and we can get started.
All right, thanks. Thanks for setting this up. Thanks for having me. Let's just go over what is always on the top of everybody's mind when we have a change in the organization, right? What are your priorities? What changes are you going to make? I heard there's going to be a big shakeup, on and on and on. I've made it a priority to be out there and talking to people more or less on a daily basis, either on my way to work or on the way home from work. And, first of all, at some point in time, there'll be some changes, but I'm not a guy, and I've been around for a few minutes, I'm not a guy that's going to make change just to make change. We should all start by acknowledging what a great department we are in all aspects of it, right? Operationally, administratively, career, volunteer, civilian. Our successes are based on the hard work of the men and women that do it every day. That said, it's been 3 weeks, right? So I need to sit back, pay attention to what's going on, what's been going on, what changes have taken place since I was in operations. I was there for a little while, but I've been gone for a little while as well. I've never completely separated, but it wasn't my responsibility anymore. That said, I've come up with some initial priorities, and I call them initial because as we evolve as an organization, my priorities are going to evolve. And my goal is for the evolution to occur together, right? So what's most important to me right now, and what's on my radar right now, and it has been since it's been for a while since I've been, in support services. Every time we had a collision or an injury or damaged something, I had to be involved in that. So there's a nexus there, right? Every several years since I've been around, we have had an event that has forced us to refocus our way of doing things, right? We're due for that. All the red flags are there. All the warning signs are there. My top priority is to get ahead of that now. I'd rather avoid that. That said, personnel safety, and personal safety are of a top priority to me, right? I think, again, we do a good job. We do strong work. But I think we're starting to lose a little bit of focus. And the reason why we lose that little bit of focus is because we haven't had one of those events in a good while, right? That said, excuse me, we're not as tight as we can be with PPE, right? For every incident, regardless of the incident, right? And that includes the proper level of respiratory protection, right?
So is this from you being out in operations and running calls and
Yeah.
talking to folks, you're seeing
Yeah.
a little bit of a lack in that?
Yeah, and remember, I never completely separated, right? So,
Yeah.
you guys that are out there all the time, you see me pop in every now and again. Now much more so, right?
Yeah.
So some of the things I've noticed, right? And we all pay attention, right? We're all the fire department first, and the other line second. And you hear it on the radio, right? Somebody talking on the radio, clearly not using SCBA, and the incident commander has not downgraded to the N95s yet,
Right.
via the consult with the safety officer, right? And then you hear 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, hey, you can on the first floor you can downgrade to N95s, right? And they're not doing it. I shouldn't say that. There have been occasions that's not being done properly, right?
Okay.
Another really big deal to me, and should be a big deal to all of us, we are a lot better educated about the cancers that we are exposed to day in and day out than we ever have been.
Absolutely.
And the people behind us are going to be even more educated,
Yep.
right? Proper decon. I've been to too many events in the last few months where there isn't any decon, right? Proper decon is important. We want to talk about PFAS and gear, which is a really big deal,
Yep.
right? But before we talk about PFAS and gear, stuff that we can't control right now, let's talk about stuff that we can control. Proper decon is one of them, right? Proper PPE is one of them. I stopped on a wreck on my way to work not too long ago, 4 o'clock in the morning. Nobody was expected to see me there, and we're cutting a windshield with no eye protection on, right? And when you're really young on the job, you think you're invincible, and you're not looking towards the end of your career, and you want to get out with 2 eyes, right? Or you're not thinking about, oh my God, if I have this injury, I may not be able to finish my career on my terms, right? Guys that have been around for a little bit longer than that, that's all they think about, right?
Sure. Yeah.
2 outs. More than a couple times recently, I've heard the declaration of we're gonna forego the 2 out, right? And some of those instances that probably shouldn't have happened, right? So let's refocus on the 2 out and the proper use of the 2 out, and when it's okay to forego the 2 out, right?
Sure.
That said, the rig, right? The rig plays a very important function in our organization. They're there for us, right? They're there for us. And if we're not fulfilling the rig, meaning staging them in the proper location, sometimes the front yard is not the right place, right? Or if we're using them for other tasks, which is okay at times, but you got to think through that, right? Because if there's a God forbid and the rig needs to be activated, they need to be ready.
Right.
They need to be ready to go. Appropriate driving behaviors, routine and emergency. We need to have a refocus on that, right? And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Another thing I'd like to see all of us, start doing a little bit more is really value and engage with the on-duty safety officers and the safety office. They're a tremendous asset to us, and I think we could be using them more than we do and including them more than we do in these types of conversations, right? They're there to help us and support us, right? that leads me to, and this all tracks to what? Complacency, right? That leads me to complacency. And once again, I'm going to say, we haven't had an event that has forced us to say, why are we doing it this way, or how did we get here? We haven't had one of those in a while. And again, my goal is to get ahead of it now so we don't have that event. Backing collisions. Nobody comes to work wanting to crash the fire truck or the EMS unit, the staff vehicle. Nobody comes to work wanting to do that, right? However, we constantly do it. And I can't think of a time when it was unavoidable. Why are we backing things into, why are we backing vehicles, why are we having backing collisions?
Right.
I don't know how you can explain that to me. Which will segue into, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to give me an honest answer. In the year 2024, so since January 1st,
Okay.
how many times do you think we've either backed into a building or driven through a bay door?
So we are 7 months into the year, right? Or 8 months into the year. 5 or 6?
15.
Oh, wow.
15 times since
Wow.
January 1st, we've either backed into our own firehouse, we've hit another piece of apparatus in our fire station, we've driven through a bay door. I just don't understand how that happens, right? It's complacency, okay? So we need to start focusing on, I know my rig and I know my building, but what can I do to prevent these things from happening, right? There's just no, to me, I don't understand how they occur. So to build on that, in the year, the entire year of 2022, we had 18 hitting a building, hitting a bay door. In 2023, for the entire year, we had 15. We're in the 8th month of 2024, and we've had 15. Again, warning flag, red flag, something's coming.
Yeah, well, God forbid we have another truck 16 backing accident, right? Like that was our last really significant.
That's the last one I can remember.
Where, God forbid, we end up hurting somebody significantly,
Right.
or even killing someone, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
And I don't understand. I don't think that everyone really takes a look at the enormity of the problem, right? So in a few of those circumstances, we've lost the use of a bay, right? A bay in the building. We've had to relocate apparatus. In many of the occasions, we've lost the use of a bay, not for structural issues, right, but because the bay door doesn't work, right? And then we often lose the use of a piece of apparatus. And when we lose the piece of that certain apparatus, then we want to complain that it takes so long to come back, right?
Yeah.
Let's start focusing on what we can do to prevent these things from occurring, right? Let's talk about it at lineup. Let's talk about it while we're drilling, right?
Not to use catchy phrases, but risk management, right?
Risk management.
Just straight up risk management. And in your opinion, all of these accidents and all of these lack of use of proper PPE and decon is just complacency, or do we need to work on some more training, right? From the training academy's perspective, do we need to
Get into that.
to send something out, right?
Yeah.
But in your opinion, and then while I have the mic, I'll ask everybody, if you're out there and you have a question for the operations team, right? Please make sure you type it in. Chief Davis will ask it, so we can get the conversation to keep going. I don't want to be the only one asking.
Yeah, no. So, and I want to talk about the word complacency for a minute. That's not necessarily a horrible word. It just means you're comfortable, right?
Yep. Yep.
Or one way to
100%.
look at it, right?
We know our people do great work.
We do, and we have great
Right.
training, and we have. I started by saying we have a great organization. I think we're all a little bit too comfortable right now, myself included. Right?
Yep.
Let's start thinking about stuff. Let's make ourselves uncomfortable.
Yep.
Right? Since I've been the operations chief, it's only been 3 weeks. We've had a near miss. I'm not going to talk about the near miss right now because it's under investigation, but it could have been a fatality.
Wow.
And the reason why it wasn't is because we got lucky, period. All right? And again, it involved crews that are experts at their trade. However, they were comfortable. Okay? I want to avoid those things.
Sure. Sure.
So you put those two things together, and my priority, I want to start refocusing on the fundamentals, both suppression and EMS. Right? We've done this a few times since I've been around, and it's always been successful. It's when it's first declared, you get some grumbling, but once you see through the grumbling, it ends up being well received and positive experience for everybody, right? So in talking to Chief Kerrigan and Chief Coletti and others in the 3 weeks I've been paying attention, or more so paying attention, we've come up with a few things, right? And Chief Kerrigan and I got into some spirited conversations, right? No, for the positive, right?
Sure.
And I'll quote him: "If we both agree on everything all the time, there's no need for one of us," right?
I've never seen Chief Kerrigan get into a spirited conversation before. It's interesting.
So the bottom line is,
Like I said, just because we disagree doesn't mean I'm wrong.
right. So the one thing I need everybody to focus on immediately, effective right now, is the most basic thing we do is protect life. That's why we're here, right? So let's talk about response to a structure fire, right? Occupant status. What does occupant status tell us? It tells us the amount of risk we're willing to take, right? So when we're talking about occupant status and other elements of the IRP, it's there for a reason, right? We're not there to check a box, right? Take it seriously, right? The next important thing.
And Chief, just to clarify,
Go.
to make sure, right, we're not talking about not searching the structure or not putting people in that IDLH, right? Because I can see people taking that and going completely left with it. We're just talking about the initial amount of risk we're willing to put our personnel in.
Yep.
Based on the known information, right? We're
Yep.
still going to search the structure. We're still going to do our basic functions, right?
Can I address this?
Yeah, I just thank you for bringing that up because that's
Yep.
important. Go ahead.
Nowhere do we not do a search.
Yep.
Right? We've got to be clear on that.
Yes.
The occupant status is declared one of three ways, and we've mentioned this before on this program, I think last year when we talked about how the command comps was built. ECC makes a statement that the occupant status is unknown. And that is based on, what they're saying is they have no further information, right? But you continue to hear units checking on the scene, and their return is occupant status is unknown. That's not a choice that the operational units have. The occupants are known to be trapped. The occupants are out, or we're not sure where the occupants are, right? Neither of those declarations changes the fact that we need to do a search.
Yep.
They change the risk level you take for that search,
Absolutely.
right? If you have somebody trapped on an upstairs bedroom in a single-family home with fire on the first floor, you're going to take a whole lot more risk getting to that person than you would if everybody's out of the house, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Even everybody out of the house does not end the
Still
need to do a
right.
search. We do a
Absolutely.
search.
Absolutely. Right. It's part of our process. It's what we do, and it's good to clarify that.
Yeah, and please interrupt me for clarity on these things, because some of these
Yep.
things are narrow focused, right? And the other thing I probably should have mentioned at the very beginning, all these topics that I'm bringing up, they're not finite, right? These are things that I just, in my mind, I jotted down right away, but the list is a lot longer. The important thing about this list is to get you and me and everyone else at station fill in the blank, or wherever their assignment is, to start thinking about this stuff and build their list, make it bigger than this one, right? So I'll blow through a handful more of these things that I think are day-to-day things that we're really comfortable in, that it probably wouldn't hurt to just refocus on it, right? We have a lot of new people. How many people just graduated a couple weeks ago?
27.
And then how many 6 months ago?
Yeah, another 50 or so, right?
Yeah.
So, and we got 37 of them in right now.
Yep, and then
So,
6 months we're doing another 40 couple, right?
Yep.
So a lot of new people coming in. So there's nothing wrong with, it's probably a great thing to start looking at the fundamentals again, right? Things like fast water, right? Line deployment and placement, right? Where and why, right? So we had this conversation, you and I, a few weeks ago on a garden apartment. Where should the first line go? And just as important, where should the second line go, right? And why? Ladder deployment and placement. Where and why, right? I'd rather. It's great to see a bunch of ladders against a building, but if they don't serve a purpose, what are we doing?
Yeah, and for me, right, being in the company and somebody that's a little bit more seasoned might listen to these things and like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I
Yeah.
know where the line should go, right? But does the guy next to you?
Teach the guy next to you.
Right, right.
Talk
and
about
I think, right, so that way the entire company's on the same page. When you run a call, it's not the time to be asking questions or being like, hey, where's this line should go, right? If you are sitting here and you're listening to this right now and you're going, I don't need to work on this stuff, right? I know where the ladders need to go. I know where the engine company needs to be and the line needs to go because I've been that guy and I listened to this spiel before, right?
Yeah.
But take this as an opportunity to teach those younger folks because we have so many of them, right? And be able to spread that knowledge so that way when the bells ring, right, and you go out on these runs, it's automatic. And then these complacency issues go away. right?
And it doesn't hurt the senior guys for a refresher also. You know, Matt came at me with a bunch of questions the other day. I didn't know the answers, right? I haven't
Yep.
done that in a while, so I need a refresher, right?
Sure.
Has been my job in a little while, right? A really important one that was ingrained in me my very first day as a volunteer in the county is know your rig, right? Know your rig. Know what you're carrying. Know how to use the tools in that rig. Know when to use those tools. You know, when not to use those tools.
Right.
Understand the operation of that rig. Building familiarization. There was a fire, actually I think it was Chief Davis's fire, a little bit over a month ago that, again, I was paying attention to, right? It sounded really good at first. Ended up being a fire on the roof of this building, right?
The building under construction.
Yeah,
with the parking
and
garage.
yeah, and you had good companies there, you had good crews there, you had good command staff there, right?
Yep.
But one of the things that Chief Dimitriadis made it a point, because I called him afterwards, made it a point to tell me was the entire A shift command staff had done a walkthrough of that building a few weeks prior to that event, and actually that paid off on that event, right? You know, I'm not sure how much building familiarization we're doing on a daily basis anymore. It could be a lot. I don't know. But I think it's important, and I think company officers should make it important, right? Especially as dynamic as our staffing is, meaning people come and go all the time. It never hurts to refresh.
That and all the construction going on. Right?
All the
We
construction
were just
going on.
talking about all the downtown Silver Spring construction and
Yep.
all the 30-story high-rise building going
Yep.
on in downtown Silver Spring. So
Yep.
all of that stuff is constantly changing around here.
Yep. Another big one, EMS skills, right? Both BLS providers, ALS providers. How about communication between ALS providers and BLS providers? What can I, as a BLS provider, do to help you on an ALS call? How do I set up this monitor? How do I set up this equipment? You know, what kind of bags or what kind of equipment can I retrieve for you on certain types of calls? You know, again, we are very fortunate. We have a lot of great resources in Montgomery County, right? And the EMIHS section is moving forward at a rapid pace.
Yep.
And every time you turn around, they're unveiling a new type of equipment,
Yep.
life-saving equipment. I'm not familiar with any of it, right? I need to be. We all need to be, right? Just so I know what I can do to help you on the scene of a call. It's really important.
Yeah, and they've definitely has kept us busy up here with the training and trying to get people caught up. And, you know, Captain Schaefer, Captain Hyunga on the EMS side. And out of it all, also what has come out, and this is something new, right? It's BLS quarterly professional development as
Yep.
well, right? We've kind of shifted our mindset up here into more of a professional development training academy. So you see, like, whether the command comps or whether we're talking about officer development and the COLA class, and you guys have seen the fire truck cab in the command lab, right? So all of those things are going to that level, and we listen to our stakeholders, the volunteers, and some other folks, and we've even interjected EMS training into AST, right? So now you're getting some ALS and some BLS skills in there. So that way, if we have EMS only members show up to AST, we can do that. So yeah, to your point, there's a lot of good things going on, even though we're moving at the speed of light, it seems like, you know?
Yeah.
So,
So I don't want to overlook that very important aspect of our role, right?
absolutely.
Here's another big one. Officers need to discuss their expectations with their personnel, right? Again, we have a young department. Congratulations, we have a lot of new promotees,
We do. yeah.
right? A lot of these new promotees are used as fill-in officers at a station where the normal officer isn't there. And it's not uncommon for a fill-in officer to work at a multi-service house with none of the officers that are normally assigned there. And if the masters could be off as well. You know, we're coming out of vacation season, so that should stabilize. But it's not unknown. So the time to have those conversations of the expectations and the rig and is there anything specific to this first due area, those conversations should be happening in the morning, even before lineup, right?
Sure.
And when you, as a company officer, or any company officer, when you have a detail person or an overtime person, what's it going to hurt to walk that person around the station, show that person where the locker rooms are, right? This is where we do our training. This is where the bunk room is. Let's walk out to the rig. Let's go over, you know, the tool, equipment, the placement. Hey, when we run this kind of call, this is how I'd like to operate. You know, those conversations are awesome, and they should be occurring daily. Understand the challenges in your response areas and have a plan for those challenges, right? Every battalion has its own unique challenges. Are we still talking about those? I don't know. I haven't been out there on a daily basis, assigned to a company or assigned battalion in a few years now. One of the things I loved about being a battalion chief in the 3rd Battalion was it had every challenge, right? And I would always say you can't fake it here, right?
Yep.
You had commercial, industrial, water, rail, air, right? You had
Yep.
lightweight construction, you had legacy construction, you had high rise, guard, you had it all, right? So I learned quickly, hey, I need to do a really good job of learning the challenges and the high risk environments in my battalion. I spent, a few years there constantly learning, right? And paying attention and listening to the people that have been there for a long time before me. Really big deal. Follow the IRP. The IRP's there for a reason, right? This department is now in a position we haven't been in the 33 years I've been here. We have a master plan and an IRP that are going to be our guides moving forward. It's really exciting for those of us that have been here for more than a few years, right?
Sure.
And they're going to bounce off each other, right? If you haven't read the master plan yet, it's 73 pages, I believe. It's a good read. It explains to you how we perceive we're going to function moving forward. A really great group of people put a lot of time and put that together, along with the IRP, right? So all of this, I'm going to wrap up here in a few minutes. All of this leads me to value and engage with the PSTA, right? The PSTA is a tremendous asset. There's a lot of stuff going on up here, day in and day out. Whether you want to brush up your command skills or your company officer skills, I'm not sure how much people have been exposed to the fire truck and the command lab now. There's a lot of great things that can go on up here. You just have to reach out and ask, right? The academy's busy,
Yep.
right? So you're not going to get, the same day service you hope to get. But I don't want to speak for you, but I imagine when they call you and ask for some kind of help on something, you're more than willing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If we can accommodate it, we're going to make it happen. And to that point, we have seen an uptick
Good.
in companies. Obviously, it's a promotional season, so there's some folks coming up here and taking advantage of the lab. But that's what it's here for, right? And I appreciate companies and proactive battalion chiefs and companies reaching out and saying, hey, we like to come up here and use the lab and participate and we have a canned product ready, right? Brian Riley, Escalero, Captain Wheeler worked really hard on creating a program that is here. It's ready. All you have to do is ask, right? So,
Which is a great segue to, I understand that we're going to ramp up acquired structure training again pretty soon, right?
we are.
There we go. So everything we've talked about so far, you can probably apply to acquired structure training, meaning the company officers, right?
Yep.
So, in a nutshell, those are my initial priorities. They're going to change. Change is probably not the right word. They're going to evolve because they will always remain priorities to me. There will be additional priorities. Again, I don't know what I don't know. I've spent the last 3 weeks learning what I don't know. I will continue to learn. And as we move forward, we'll evolve.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any questions, Chief Davis, from the chat before we move on to Chief Kerrigan?
No.
Okay. Chief Kerrigan, you're up.
Thank you. And first, I want to say to Battalion Chief Davis, is an excellent program, and congratulations on what you've started, what you initiated.
He's not done yet.
That's fine.
He thinks he's not done, but he's not done.
Knowledge contract. So I want to speak to a couple things that Chief Cooper said, just mostly in the risk management part of it, right? So a lot of the conversation has always been, this happens and the department suffers or the firehouse suffers or the operator. But I want people to take a step back and think about how they're individually impacted. If you're natted, right, that takes you away from overtime opportunities. It takes you away from a position that you may hold near and dear to your heart, right? You're going to be personally affected. So you have some.
Stake in the game.
You're a stakeholder in it, right? If you come down with cancer, you're not coming down with cancer because you didn't wear your BA today, right? You're coming down later in life. You're going to be cut short. You're going to miss opportunities, whatever they are.
Sure.
If you're not wearing your proper PPE on medical calls, there's a whole lot of diseases out there that are easily caught. When he talks about back to the basics with hand lines and ladders and all that stuff, if you think about our operations and how we're laid out, there is an extreme amount of redundancy built into our operations. We establish a water supply, we ensure that water supply. We establish a second water supply, we ensure that one. We even have a fifth engine that is the catch-all to make sure that that process happens, right? We put a hand line in place, we put a backup line in place. Most likely, the garden department's a good example. 99.9% of the time, that hand line's coming right up behind the first one, right, for protection. Ladders. We get people in buildings, we get people out of buildings with secondary exits, right? There is an extreme amount of redundancy. Your BA, you can't breathe that air, so you take air with you. There's no sense that we should be the ones eliminating that redundancy at our own expense,
Right.
our personal health, well-being expense. So, yes, it does affect the department, it does affect some delivery models, but ultimately it comes back to an individual is going to be the most.
So I'd like to back up a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about your position?
Yeah.
So you're
That's
obviously
where I was going.
Yeah, you're DXO to Chief
Yeah.
Cooper, right?
So my role has not changed under Chief Cooper. I'm essentially the overseer of the day-to-day stuff that happens across the four shifts, if you will. Chief Grinder reports to me. He's responsible for day workers in operations. But one of the big things is to try to keep things consistent across the three shifts.
Mm-hmm.
As far as how we manage, how the duty chiefs, they all work with me on what are we going to do with this event, scheduling events and stuff like that. When you get down to the individual station things, that's captains, battalion chiefs stuff. That is probably never going to be, nor should it be, the same on all three shifts, right?
Sure.
But there's some structural things that's one of my tasks. It's not always done well, but it's, we attempt to. I'm also the first line of communication up. So the duty chief will send stuff up, or anything up the chain of command will come. And that could be anything from, policy question. I had one.
An injury, whatever. it may
Injury,
be, right?
hospital,
Collision.
something like that.
Right.
If it rises to the level, he knows a lot of what I know, but he just doesn't have to think about that. He's thinking much broader.
Sure.
At least that's how I envision it. He's thinking much broader in the objectives, and I'm kind of narrowed into what are we doing today, right? I'm typically the one asking questions about things that appear to be maybe a little. They need to have questions asked, right?
Sure.
And try to get an answer and decide if we have something that we need to work on. So that's really what I spend my time on. There's some other stuff that I do, listening to box alarms in the past, trying to get some data together. We spoke about 2 outs, like how many times are we omitting the 2 out? Was it appropriate? Just a lot of ongoing things, but
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah.
I think most importantly, Matt, it's the day-to-day face of operations.
Yep.
Right? And it's important that people know that.
Yep.
So, in operations, you have ECC, Special Ops, EMS. ECC, that this is what's kind of happening in the department, but ECC, Chief Ogren is now the chief there since July, and I haven't seen too many structural changes there. I think that's moving along pretty good. Special Ops, county fairs going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
People should see a reduced number of units committed. We've downsized our footprint there. And what you're also seeing this year is a paramedic truck. Right, so we drop an engine to 3. If it's not Tower 8, but it can't be Tower 8 all the time. And they put 4 on the thing. And the reason is to get 2 ALS providers there and not to get necessarily 2 engines.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
TRT this is also in Special Ops. TRT has been doing some really good things, one of which they went to a well recovery over last weekend or weekend before,
Right.
which really speaks to their reputation, because that wasn't a mutual aid call, as I understand it. That was somebody in that area. I mean, this was St. Mary's County, so we
Okay.
didn't even have an
Yeah.
agreement with them, right? Somebody there recognized that the challenge was to a point that, this is not going to work. Call Montgomery County, they can do it.
Wow.
Right? So
Okay.
that is a huge accolade to that team for
Yeah.
however that word got out.
They're actually assisting with a search in York, Pennsylvania right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I
Okay.
think they're done with that.
Same thing though, right?
Right, yeah. They called us
Yeah.
because, right,
Sometimes it's not the whole team. Sometimes it's just a few members, but you
Sure.
know they're well renowned. I mean, this whole county is.
yeah, and they just got deployed down south, right? for a
That was
couple of days.
Task Force One, Maryland Task Force
Right.
One, right? They went down. They
Yep.
did what they needed to do. They came back. Everybody's safe and.
Yeah, I know that's different, but the same.
It's-
It gets
yeah.
a little incestuous, but
Yeah, I don't completely understand it. I just know
Sure.
that they're.
Yeah.
We also had one member involved.
separate
in
but the same.
Maryland Hart, which is like a helicopter reconnaissance.
Okay.
Because of the storm that came through here.
all right.
Last Friday. When did that storm come? Last week? Yeah, Friday, you know,
Yep.
so we put one of our members in a helicopter, let him fly around. I don't know what I don't think he's flying it. FEI had 3 master firefighters graduate
Yeah.
from the police academy, so they're starting their training. And one master firefighter entering the police academy next month, or in the near future, they're going to continue the process of Fire 3s coming in
Okay.
to the FEI group, right? So that's a build out. With EMS,
And you also have a battalion chief in there now, right? Chief Ewart's.
Chief
Well,
Ewart is
yeah.
placed there. It is not a battalion chief position.
Right, correct. Right, but he's there managing the.
Yeah, the other civilian manager separated
Yep.
in June. I think it was June, mid-June. So we needed somebody there to
Pick up the
that
slack.
was the quick fix.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's in place right now. On the EMS side, there's a couple things going on. You know, you mentioned paramedic and BLS training that's kind of changed in advance. Whole blood is out. That has already done some good stuff.
Yeah, and with
Pretty
that,
significant
we're going to be.
trauma injuries.
Yeah, we're going to be supporting that, right? Part of the agreement is that we have to provide 2 blood drives a year to be able to support having the blood program in the county.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been working with, the Mann family to kind of bring back the blood drive.
Alfaro
So
blood
yeah,
drive,
the
yeah.
Alfaro blood drive. So working with the Alfaros and the
Good.
Manns to kind of bring it back. So October 20th, actually, if you want to pencil that in, is going to be our first one, and then we're looking to do something along the lines of April, right? So Ryan Harris and some other folks have been involved as well because we talk about PFAS and donating blood is a good way to kind of get rid of that stuff in your body. So we're kind of incorporating all that, and we're also going to try to include our police partners. In a way, we're donating blood to save the lives of our community on top of the service that we already provide. And the way we're selling it to the police as well is, hey, man, one of you guys could benefit from this someday. So maybe, participating in this and giving back as well. Not only are you giving back to the community, but you could be saving the life of one of your own
Sure.
as well.
So I want to interject on the whole blood for a second. I'm not sure if this is widely known yet, but within hours of starting that program, they saved a life.
Oh, no.
There's a person walking around today that wouldn't be walking around if we didn't have the whole blood program.
Wow.
It's real. What we do is real.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
And the last part about the EMS sections that I was going to bring up, and again, these are just some of the things that are happening. All the DOs, EMS DOs are placed, been moved. So we're at 4 now, which is good stuff. New equipment that's coming in, and most all this is actually related to some fires. So we've had February of last year, had that fire in Silver Spring, right? The immediate reaction to that was a high-rise fire, non-sprinklered, 8750 Georgia Avenue, 1 fatality. And what's interesting about that call that I don't think we paid enough attention to is that historically, the fatalities that occur in fires, the person is usually from the fire compartment, meaning they were in the house that was on fire, they were in the apartment that was on fire. This individual that passed away died from smoke exposure, was a leading cause in a stairwell, right? And not even from the same floor. So from 2 floors above, I believe, evacuating the building, but because of the lack of smoke control and lack of ability to control the smoke, that was an extremely non-SOP driven fire.
Oh, yeah.
You lost a lot of things that are normally, you lost all the compartmentation, there was no early suppression, and there was a delay in the 911. So you were behind the 8 ball. Fire rescue was showing up, and that even put the people further behind.
Sure.
So because of that, we had 6 floor below nozzles that we were in the process of moving out. But very quickly after that, we decided, this is probably March of last year, put those on 6 ladder trucks. We went 3 out and then went second 3. So 15, 24, 19, 16, 6, and 23 are the ladder trucks that have them.
Okay.
And the reason they went there is because they're in proximity to the majority of the non-sprinklered residential high-rises.
Right.
We have roughly, depending on the count of floors, you have roughly, say, a good 80 residential buildings that are considered high-rises that do not have sprinkler systems in them, in the residential areas or in the common hallways. So if the fire gets out of the department, you're really behind the 8 ball.
Right.
The floor below nozzle is a relatively good thing. We have some videos that Dom can kind of speak to, but there's a group. The group is Chief Coletti, Chief Christie first, Chief Rob first, and Chief Stakes out of BCC, who is also a UL engineer. And they did some very good work in documentation as to what those things are capable of. Again, they've been out. What we're trying to do, along with informing people that they're out, is also doing some tests to find out if you're a battalion chief or a unit officer and somebody, you decide, battalion chief, you decide that's what you want to use, that tool, and you're a unit officer, you know what you're going to take. And it's about 4 to 5 people to put the floor below nozzle in place. It's been done with 1.5 inch and it's been done with 2-inch hose, and there's really no comparative. This thing could be used for several different reasons, right? The 8750 fire was not a wind-driven fire,
Right.
right? But the door to the compartment was open and the hallway was very severely compromised. There was rescues being made in the hallway between the fire department entry and the fire department. So that, detracted them. Hopefully the floor below is a little clearer and they could, a team could get in there and operate. The communication is the key to recognizing or recognition and then communicating that back to command so that the tool can function. Do you want to show the floor below video, please?
So this was some more validation that we did. If you could pause it for a second right now, that would be fantastic, just to give a little bit of background. We were at Mifree Northeast. We had a burn building that had 2 floors to it. This is a first floor to a second floor. So what you're looking at is 4 different frames, right? You're looking at an exterior shot in the upper left. You see the nozzle, and maybe you can't see it so well online, coming out of the first floor window, J-hooking back up at like a 30-degree up into that fire compartment. Upper right, you have a 3rd-story stairwell roof hatch, and then bottom left, a hallway camera, and then bottom right, a hallway IR camera. So the whole intention of this floor below nozzle is to quickly get some volume of water into that fire compartment. We talk about fast water. This is a tool potentially to look at fast water where our normal hose streams can't reach. So we had a pretty well-developed fire inside of the compartment. A crew, and I believe they were using 1.5 inch here, being pumped off an engine company. Took that nozzle out the floor below, and you can see the stream goes up, shoots into the window, and it requires some coordination to get it to go to the right place. Go ahead, you can start playing it, and you'll see once the water starts moving very, very quickly, you could tell on the thermal camera, we get really good reduction of heat, smoke, toxic products of combustion, all in that hallway. If you look out the stairwell roof, we're getting good conversion up and out. So we had kind of played with this building for a whole bunch of purposes. We were looking at some smoke control stuff that we'll talk about. But really, this is a tool that with maybe 1 or 2 engines worth of folks, we can get fast water into a compartment where, take a Georgia Ave situation where we're unable to get down the hallway or we're having difficulties getting down the hallway. We can get water into that compartment rapidly, right? We're not going to use it for this kind of application. We just throw a hand line in a second floor window, right? We're talking windows, access points that are above either hand lines or ladder pipes or things like that, right? So those edge cases where it's like, man, if only I could throw 60 GPM in that window right now, I can make a big difference. This floor below nozzle is a really unique tool to take and accomplish that.
Awesome.
some other things that group worked on is smoke curtains inside. So if you want to show the smoke curtain video while I tell, this is a video, 2 people can put this in place, and it can essentially goes into the door frame of an open door, pins itself up against the door and blocks the smoke. This is something that is not out yet. I think Joint Health and Safety is still reviewing it.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah, tomorrow morning. I've heard
Tomorrow
some
morning
good,
they'll be here. Yep.
good suggestions from that group that, what they were looking at to include. So we'll see. If there is something wrong with it, then we'll wait to see what the outcome is of that group. But this is another tool that's probably feasible to be used by the end user. It does a lot of the same thing. It stops and smoke movement's a huge thing in high-rise fires.
Sure.
It really is, and controlling it is one of the priorities. So that's something that can be used.
And garden apartments as well, right? Like, so when you're talking about multifamily dwellings, the use for these curtains can be multifaceted.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it can be.
Right.
Right. And I wouldn't rule it out. I don't know that I would focus as much on that as I would in the high rise.
Sure.
Because you affect a whole lot more people. Garden apartments are limited in height. If you get a fire on a mid floor of a high rise, you could effectively have, just as many floors above you as below affected by this fire. Garden apartment is
Yeah, I was thinking more of that, that Castle Boulevard fire you and I ran,
Yeah,
more
that
than,
wasn't
more than
gonna
5 minutes, more than 5 minutes
that was
ago.
a different problem. That
Yeah,
fire
but the
was up.
entire
Right.
hallway was also compromised, right? The front door was open.
Yep.
There was no way for people to get out, and that's what forced Steve Wiseman and others to make those
Yeah.
multiple rescues out of the balconies because people didn't have anywhere to go because
Yeah.
of the smoke movement as well. So,
We also did, or you guys did the knockout blanket, right? Which is the true wind-driven fire thing.
Yes, so we have, if you guys want to throw up the video so folks can look at some stuff. So this, you can go ahead and start the video, you could play it. This is the KO curtain, the knockout curtain. If you're really interested, you can go online, UL FSRI. They have like a 200-page report from a bunch of testing they did on Rikers Island. This thing was kind of put together in conjunction with the fire department of the city of New York. And the intention for this product was wind-driven fires. So you have a compartment fire, the window has taken and failed, and you're getting that, indicators of a wind-driven fire, right? Buffeting. And what you can see here was we took an aerial tower, we put a PPV fan on it. We're actually blowing a PPV into the window to simulate a wind-driven fire. So we have a crew of 2 up above. They're taking and lowering this curtain. It's roughly 8 foot by 10 feet. It's some super fancy high-tech fabric, has a couple pieces of aluminum in it to reinforce it and give it some rigidity. And the thought behind this blanket is lower it from the floor above and partially or preferably completely occlude that opening so that that wind-driven fire on the windward side of the structure is no longer creating that flow path into the structure. I don't know if you're paying attention to the video too close. The fire's still burning. This isn't putting the fire out. But this is just dampening the fire so that a traditional interior attack from the common hallway into the fire compartment can be made. I'm sure looking at this, everyone's got a bunch of questions on it. This particular device is extremely expensive, and it's pretty narrow in scope. Even on this burn building, we had some issues negotiating it up and over and around just the metal shutters in the windows, right? So you talk about balconies, you talk about any structure that has an unusual exterior configuration, you're not going to get this total occluding to occur. So we have it, we have one, but it's pretty low on the list of
Yeah, we're not
priorities.
pursuing buying any more of them. We can get almost 2 floor below nozzles for the cost of one of those.
so I think the message here is just that we got some cool things up and coming, right? We're doing a lot of testing, doing some trying out, and hopefully in the future, we're going to see maybe 1 or 2 of these things out
2
there.
more quick things that are happening. Deck
Yep.
gun tips are getting ready to come out. An additional deck gun tip that will replace the 1 3/8.
Okay,
It's an 1 1/8 tip. 1 1/8 deck gun tip, flow 300 gallons a minute. Fleet's getting ready to push that out with some directional and what to do with the other tips and
Yeah.
what you flow it at and everything. And it's designed for some of those events that we've shown up, and we don't want to dump all the tank water rapidly, but you still might want to use the deck gun for an attack.
Quick knockdown. Yeah, okay.
And then also Fleet put out a bulletin about the field adjustable standpipe valves, pressure reducer valves. So the station should start seeing those.
Great. Awesome. All right.
Bloody.
Chief Coletti, last but not least, let's talk to you about your position and what is it that you do over here with the operations team.
All right, so I'll make it short because I can see we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
Can we go over if we need to?
Yeah, if we need to, we can keep going. Yeah. If you make it interesting.
I'll
You
do
don't
what
retire
I'll do
before
what I
then, do you,
can.
Mark?
I can ramble on forever.
Yeah.
So some of the big responsibilities in my position is I'm the staffing chief, right? So what does that mean? Staffing, it's a big thing to grapple with. I have the scheduling office underneath of me, so I'm responsible for the 3 schedulers. Outside of that, basically anything in the world that may relate to telestaff, station assignments, transfer meetings. Some big things coming up in my world for the next couple of months. We're going to be doing Kelly picks and leave picks. So that's all managed through my office. I'm sure a lot of people out there have gotten emails from me as far as FMLA, military leave. I am the keeper of all of those things. It's a lot to grapple with. Every day on the career side, we staff 308 people in the seats during the day, and 270 at night.
Yep.
So part of my job is, figuring out, looking at who's showing up to work, how often they're showing up to work, figuring out what our staffing is, working with other folks in the department, and making sure that we have enough people to meet the staffing requirements. Everyone hates force holds.
Yep.
It's horrible that you don't get to go home. And we really, in the staffing office, we want to try to work to minimize those and drive them away. Outside of doing all the staffing stuff, I've also been involved, like Chief Carrigan said, with doing some of the testing with the groups out there. You're going to see me in the field. I'm getting that at least one day a pay period. I work a fair amount of overtime. I like to think that I'm relatively approachable. I still get a lot of good conversations when I go out. And when we talk about staffing, especially at the firehouses, I'll start talking about something, and usually after 5 or 10 minutes, everyone comes to the kitchen table, and I have an audience of 20 folks.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So to that point, we spitballed over the past couple of days, probably in the next, month or 2 or 3, I'll be back up, and we'll have a mock fire department kitchen table discussion for an hour and talk about some of the things that I see in the staffing office.
Yeah, because we can fill more than an hour probably
And
just
I'm
talking about that.
Sure, the YouTube chat will be lighting up with questions when it comes to all the staffing questions. Hey, why do we do this? I see this happening and tell the staff, why does it happen this way?
Sure.
Certainly, I've been doing the staffing component of this job now for 4 months. I've learned a lot. I continue to learn a lot every day. And everything that we do for a purpose.
Yep.
That purpose may not be crystal clear to the end users because they're only seeing this much of it, but I would like to think if I could sit down with somebody and talk to them, I can say, hey, look, here's all of the reasons that we do all of these things in this fashion. And everything that we do is well thought out, and it does have all of our employees' interest, best interest in mind. We're
Sure.
working in everyone's best interest to make the place as good as we can. That's kind of my short spiel.
Okay. Any questions out there? No? No questions. All right. Any final words?
Yeah, so as I've been sitting here listening to these guys and you talk, there's so much more I'd like to talk about, right?
Sure.
There's so many things that I should have said that I didn't say. But I will say again, I am so proud to be part of this organization. I'm so proud of who I work with and who I work for. And, I want everyone to keep that in mind. Just because we've identified some areas that, we believe there'd be a value in refocusing on,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we're not top-notch.
Sure. We should always be looking for areas of opportunity and
Yep.
growth, right? As persons and as a group.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
Awesome. Chief Kerrigan, you got anything?
I just want to, say, we talked about some things, we talked about the risk and everything, but I also don't want to lose focus of the great job that our members are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, really, 99. If you think about the the problems or the complaints, so they're small in comparison to the things that are really going well.
Right.
And,
A lot of good work out there.
that can't go unsaid.
Perfect.
And here's the deal, too. You know, I told you at the beginning that, you know, there'll be some changes coming up, right? I'm going to make mistakes, right? We all make mistakes. And the important part about a mistake is you learn from it, you adjust, and you move forward, right? And that's all I can ask of everybody else.
Right. All right. If that's it, I think we're good. We'll be right back tomorrow with another episode. We're talking about the transformer fire that Chief Hudson was in charge of. So we'll be right back here tomorrow. We're also scheduling, you heard Chief Coletti talk about an episode talking about scheduling and staffing and some other catch-all stuff that we're going to be continuing to discuss. And also be on the lookout for the church fire episode, the New Hampshire Avenue fire. Chief Masters, Captain Kittner, and some others will be here to discuss that incident. So until next time, thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating, and we'll see you out there.